Hello and welcome to Art Abandonment Adventures. This is an art creation day. I will be working on the collection The Joy of Abandonment, series number 1, Fairy Garden. In this video, I will be upcycling different components of the assemblage art pieces. For this series, I will be upcycling containers, rocks, and different gnomes and fairy figures. Step number 1, prime the pieces. Using a matte acrylic white paint, I completely primed all of the pieces. Since there's many different components being assembled together, the primer allows the paint to stick to whatever surface that they need to stick to. For example, to the fairies, the rocks, and plastic dishes. When it comes to painting the figures and any of the pieces that have a lot of detail, you want to make sure that the primer is not real thick, but you do want it enough so that the paint will stick when you get to the base colors. After priming all the components, I will let them dry before moving on to step 2, which is painting the base color. To paint the base color of the containers, I use different shades of gloss green paint, and I did use that color for both the inside and outside of the containers. When it came to painting the base color of the rocks, I used different shades of matte paint in orange, yellow, and brown colors. After all the components were painted, both the tops and bottoms of the rocks and the inside and outside of the containers, I let it completely dry before moving on to step number 3, customization. I used several different techniques when it came to painting the containers and the rocks. With the smaller containers, I use the dotting technique. Now, the way I do it is I use a dotting tool and I just put evenly amounts of dipped paint onto the container. You will notice that I use different size dots, and you can do that by either using less paint or by using different thickness dots. And I have about 6 or 7 different sizes of the dotting tools available, and you can buy them as full kits. They can either be nail dotting kits or embossing, so that's 2 ways that you can find these particular dotting tools. When it came to customization on the rocks, I used a technique that I like calling line detailing. What I mean by line detailing is I take the dotting tool dip it into the paint, and then make different size lines and shapes. You will notice that on the rocks there is a thicker pattern, and that's just because I dipped more of the paint and made it more of a spread out design instead of just fine wisp of lines. Then for the few large containers, I did fine detail work, and basically there were already patterns that were impressed into the containers. So basically what I did was use the dotting tool as a tracing tool and just put paint on the dotting tool and just traced over the lines. It does help elevate the style of customization, but if you're someone like me that has a hard time with your dexterity of your hands, using the dotting tool as a tracing tool will really help you achieve this, where if you're someone that doesn't have those problems, you might be able to just do fine detail work on any kind of pattern. Now, to make sure that you can do the fine detailing if you're going to trace, when you're putting on your primer and your base coat, just make sure that they're not too thick where they will cover up the pattern. In video 2 of this series, I will finish upcycling the components and assembling the actual art pieces. I love hearing back from individuals who have found a piece of my artwork. If you have found a piece, you can send me where you found it or any special story connected to a piece to the email on the business card. You can leave a comment down below, or you can send a message to the Facebook Art Abandonment group. If you have liked what you've seen, push the like button, leave a comment, and follow. And as always, happy abandoning.